We walk by faith, not by sight. It's a common expression among us Christians. We often hear it in preaching and the lives of the saints. We've just heard it, the part of the scriptures that it comes from, St. Paul's second letter to the Corinthians. And the context of that saying is important because it tells us what the original point was. It is meant as an expression to help us face death, because none of us can see past death, and death is terrifying. Knowing this, first Jesus and then St. Paul offer us what we need to face death in the best way possible. And not only that, it equips us to face all of life in the best way possible. Think of it like this. Imagine you've transferred to another school in another country that doesn't play any of the sports that we do. Instead, they have a sport you've never heard of. And imagine, it uses a field and a ball and safety equipment, but all of them are different from anything you've used before. Now, would you just hop in to play that game, just get on the field and run around, throw and kick the ball and tackling people without knowing the rules? Imagine trying to play a game where you don't even know how to score points. But let's say you did that, and you kind of figure it out as you go. And when you play this new sport and do your best and have a good time, it even looks like you're winning because you seem to be scoring lots of points. And yet, when the game ends, the other players come over to explain that actually you lost. Because now that it's over, there are a bunch of rules which change the score at the end of the game that you didn't know. You might get mad, but whose fault is it that you didn't learn the rules first? Just because you thought you understood the game at the beginning didn't mean you understood the whole game. And that's actually how a lot of people approach life. We jump right in. We actually don't have a choice about that part. But then we just keep going through life, acting on what we see and what's around us without stopping to see the whole picture, to consider whether we understand the whole picture. And whether we like it or not, every game ends. And in some games, the winner isn't decided until after. Whether we like it or not, death is a part of life, and what happens after death matters. Unlike some obscure imaginary sport, however, we can't just watch the whole game first. You can see what happens after a sports game or a board game or whatever, but you cannot see what happens after death. You can't see it, but that doesn't mean you can't know it. By faith, we can know what comes after death. When we look at the mortal remains of another person, it certainly looks like there's nothing left. Life's over. The person is gone. And it's only a matter of time until they are forgotten completely. It's part of why death terrifies us, why a lot of people avoid talking about death, why they do things like, say, celebration of life instead of funeral, why they avoid bringing their children to funerals, and why we tend to hide the sick and the elderly away, out of sight, in nursing homes. If all you have is sight, death looks like everyone loses eventually. We'd rather play life and have fun, so we avoid the topic of death. And that's why Jesus goes at it head on. Not only does he outright tell his disciples that he's going to die, he puts his finger on the thing that everyone is feeling, but no one is talking about at the Last Supper. Do not let your hearts be troubled. If I go, die, and prepare a place for you, I will come back again and take you to myself, so that where I am, you also may be. In other words, death doesn't mean that I cease to exist. I'll come back. I'll take you past death to a dwelling place. Why would someone who's dead need a dwelling place? Sure, we bury bodies, but eventually even tombs and stones break down into dust. But a dwelling place past death. How can that be? No one can see that. You can't prove that. No, we can't see it, but we know it's there by faith. Not only is death not the end of life, what comes after death is the most important part of life. Just like our hypothetical sports game, the real score of life is decided at the end. Paul tells us we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, that we may receive recompense according to what we do in the body, good or evil. And even though we cannot see the judgment of each soul, our faith helps us to know that it's real. And it even helps us to know what we're being judged on. If we're willing to listen to and trust the guy who created the game we call life, he's already told us how to win. Which is why we're burying people we don't even know. Because we want to win at life. Where I am going, you know the way, says Jesus. Thomas doesn't get it, but Jesus explains, I am the way and the truth and the life. What does that mean? It means that winning at life means playing it like Jesus. Even better, it means playing it with Jesus. And how does Jesus play the game of life? He loves. He wills the good of the other. I did this yesterday with the little ones, so I'll do it with you. What is love? Repeat after me. To will the good of the other. To will the good of the other. Good. The God who created the game of life joined it to show us how to play to win. We win by loving, by willing the good of the other. And just in case you aren't sure what it means to will the good of the other, we have lists like the corporal works of mercy: feed the hungry, clothe the naked, visit the sick and imprisoned, and bury the dead. We're burying the dead because we love them, regardless of who they were and what we knew about them. And then there's the spiritual works of mercy: forgiving offenses, comforting the afflicted, instructing the ignorant, praying for the living and the dead. We are praying for these deceased people and all who have died. Why? Because they've earned it? No. Because we want to love them, to will what is good for them. And why do we want to love them? Because regardless of what they did or who they were, we want to win the game of life. And we win by loving, by willing the good, even of people we do not know. Faith tells us the rules of the game. Hope gives us the motivation and strategy to win, and love is playing it the right way. Only life is not a game. It's so much better than that. Life and the unavoidable death that is part of this life are about salvation and glory and eternal joy and dwelling with God for all eternity in a perfect communion of love. So take a serious and honest look at the death we confront today. And do more than look. For we walk by faith, not by sight. Let the death and mystery we confront today be met with a faith that assures us we have a better dwelling place than a stone box in a grass field. Let it be met with a hope that the Lord will indeed wipe away tears from all faces. And let it be met with a love that walks in the way of Jesus Christ, that knows the truth of Jesus Christ, that lives the life of Jesus Christ, who alone can bring us to his Father's house.